The team I advise is kicking us off this evening. They have been working with Football for Future on a climate adaptation fund. Gabe?
Thank you, Chandler. Good evening, everyone. My name is Gabriele Silver. It's my honor and pleasure to open tonight's final capstone briefings by presenting our team's project, The Future of Adaptation Funds in Global Sport. So, as the referee blows his metaphorical whistle to start us off, tonight our lineup will see us going through the context of our problem, the project we built to solve it, how we built it, our recommendations for it, alongside the next steps with our client, Football for Future. Tonight, you'll be hearing me reference football as what many of you may know as soccer. This is not just a sport, it's a world's game. Who here hasn't kicked a ball growing up, or even just a piece of trash before recycling it? I do it all the time, and I'm sure many of you do as well. More than half of the global population identifies as fans of the sport, and every 4 years, the World Cup brings together over 4 billion viewers. Economically, the sport drains $130 billion in revenue, which would make it comparable to the 57th largest economy in the world. But what really matters and makes the sport important aren't these numbers, it's its cultural force. Football transcends race, class, geography. It unites families. It's a tradition across generations. The very bracelet I'm wearing right now was gifted to me by my father, who you can see behind me, for our beloved team, Bologna Football Club. From informal street games to global tournaments, football unites communities and global stages. This is a great reach, and with great reach comes great responsibility. To understand why this responsibility matters so much today, let's focus on Valencia in Spain, which in 2024 was devastated by catastrophic flooding, which destroyed infrastructure, including local teams such as Paiporta CF in the picture depicted here. It also displaced communities and took hundreds of lives. In the aftermath, Valencia CF, one of the main football teams of the region, became more than just a club. It became a place of gathering, of embrace, of grieving. This shows us something very important that we want to highlight. Football is deeply embedded in communities, which are often the same communities that are getting more and more exposed to climate threats. Which brings us to today and to the World Cup. The 2026 FIFA World Cup is projected to be one of the most climate-exposed events in the history of our world. The three main climate threats we have identified are flooding, extreme heat, and drought. 14 out of the 16 host stadiums already exceed safe play thresholds for at least one of these hazards. And looking forward, host cities will expect to face at least twice as many extreme heat days and 4 times the demand with respect to supply for water. These are not hypotheticals for the future, they are current realities. And while hydration breaks may exist as a short-term adaptation measure, this is not enough. Sports and the communities around it must adapt, which is exactly why we are partnering with our client, Football for Future, or from here on out, FFF. They are a UK-based nonprofit with global reach, which focuses on embedding climate action into sport, specifically football. They've partnered with many important stakeholders, amongst whom the Premier League, Nike, Adidas. They've also hosted numerous workshops for thousands of students, and they've co-authored very important reports for the industry, such as Pitches in Peril, which is a landmark analysis which explains how or shows how drought, extreme heat, and flooding will reshape football as we know it for years to come. They sit specifically at the intersection of climate expertise and credibility and football knowledge, making them the perfect partner for our project. So what did we build for them? We built the FFF Climate Adaptation Fund Framework, which is a transferable blueprint built for sporting organizations to help grassroots clubs secure financing so that they can strengthen resilience against climate risks. Our fund and the purpose of our fund is threefold. First, we want to protect host cities that are most impacted by climate stress. Then, we want to increase resilience in infrastructure and local systems. And we also want to ensure that mega sporting events leave long-term adaptive benefits alongside their legacies. It is very important to note that for us, this does not stop with football. Our framework is built so that it can be transferred across sports and geographies. But let's make it tangible. Let's apply it to the 2026 World Cup. All cities face some type of climate risk, and under specific circumstances, almost all of them will become unplayable, as you can see with all the yellow and red dots behind me. Focusing on where we are right now, New York City faces 11 days of extreme heat every year, which makes hydration breaks necessary. By 2050, this number is expected to rise to 38 days, which consists of a third of a full season. So let's focus on a grassroots organization, such as Suma Football, which is just a hypothetical team we came up with only for the sake of this presentation. Under our framework, they could apply for funding for an adaptation project such as something against extreme heat. Their application process would be very simple. They would apply, the fund board would review, funding would be granted, implementation would start, and then reporting would be carried out at the end so that we can see the real impacts of a global event on local communities. Our system is built on the 6 pillars that you see behind me, which were chosen specifically after a deep analysis of existing climate funds combined with many interviews with experts in the field. At its core, our mission is to support climate adaptation in the host communities for the selected sporting events. So specifically to the World Cup, this applies to US, Mexico, and Canada. We see the backboard of the fund as the governance board, for which we want to suggest a multi-stakeholder structure. This ensures credibility, reduces bias, and strengthens decision-making. Some stakeholders that we can see, or that we would see take place, would be the sponsor organization, potential public sector representatives, or local leagues. We saw this work very effectively in the UEFA Euro 2024 Climate Fund. The primary donor would be the sponsor organization, but we can see potential smaller sums of money coming to our fund from host cities, local communities, but also fans, teams, or private donors. The size of the fund would depend on the sponsor's financial capability, but for reference, the UEFA Euro 2024 Climate Fund was able to invest almost 8 million euros in climate adaptation and mitigation projects. So we would see an event like the World Cup with double the amount of teams and greater reach, potentially raising even a higher sum of money. The impact that we want to have is specific to the 3 core risks we have identified. Projects would include, but are not limited to, drainage systems for flooding, cooling infrastructure for heat, or just water systems for drought and intelligent water systems for drought. We want to make sure that our project has a tangible impact on the communities that are hosting these events. Organizations would apply, and the fund board would review, assessing climate risk that is addressed, geographic distribution, feasibility, but also financial needs of the organization. And we want to stress that the board must review using transparent and consistent criteria that must be set in advance so that we can ensure more trust coming from both applicants and donors. And finally, reporting would be carried out before, during, and after the sporting events. Organizations would submit annual reports after a baseline report, and then a final summary, which would be these three components would then be put together by the fund board for a final progress report. But what are we actually handing to FFF? We're giving them this framework based on the 6 pillars I've just mentioned, funding deployment models, which show the suggestions we have made for funding allocation to the selected projects, and then a consistent application form, which includes also a budget template, so that we can ensure transparency, but also no bias in applications. As we reach the final minutes of our match, the next steps for us will see us continuing our partnership with FFF after Capstone, as they will be launching their fund during the World Cup. We will also be presenting our fund at the Green Sports Alliance Summit next week in Cleveland on May 6th. FFF will be introducing the framework at the London and New York Climate Weeks, respectively in June and September. This is very important for us because we want to make sure that our fund gets introduced to the world of climate adaptation in sport on the global scale, because our endpoint goal is to use the World Cup as a launch pad, not a dot, not an endpoint, so that we can show climate change a red card. This project was made possible by the incredible guidance of our faculty advisor, Chandler Precht, the leadership of our fantastic manager, Ariana Sobani, and the incredible work our fantastic, amazing team has put together. So please, while I thank you for your time and stay here for any additional questions, join me in congratulating them and in wishing Beatrice Granata happy birthday.
Thank you. That was a great presentation. I only had one quick question on, have you guys explored or did you guys look into what happens to these infrastructure projects or whatever project it is that you guys would fund? What happens after the match? Are they meant to like stay in the place? Is there an idea to maybe transfer it somewhere else? Is that something that you guys explored?
Thank you for your question and for your kind comment. Yes, obviously we want to make sure that our projects are long-term and provide long-term benefits to the grassroots organizations that need the funding specifically for these projects to adapt to climate risk. So the idea is to provide funding through our framework to organizations that will then implement adaptation projects that will last a long time, if not forever.
Hi. Amazing presentation. The slides were beautiful. Also loved the card at the end, everything. I appreciated the Suma Football Club example. I'm sure you guys really put yourself in the shoes of grassroots organizations that are going to be applying. With that, could you maybe speak to like some of the considerations that went into putting yourself in those grassroots organizations' shoes? Like, for example, I know about this less from a sports perspective, but when I think about like community gardens in New York City, they often don't have the money to pay for stuff up front, right? So that's why they apply for grants, but they're often given reimbursement. So there's a bit of a issue when they have to pay for something that they can't afford. So curious if that, for example, went into consideration or anything else. Thanks.
Thank you for your kind words, Zoe, and for the question. Yes, obviously, we want to, as I mentioned, one of the eligibility perspectives for applicants is their financial needs. We want to prioritize those organizations that do not have the financial means, or maybe even the teams built in them to implement these projects and actually carry out these projects. So yes, the funding would be allocated to them upfront. Ideally, that's our suggestion.
Hi, thank you so much. I agree with what everyone said. Great presentation. And I just want to make sure I understand. So the individual teams themselves will be responsible for reaching out to you all and applying for aid with the things that they deem necessary, I don't know, in a particular playing field or whatever. And I'm just wondering how difficult that might be, because these are like sports players. Of course, I know they're highly intelligent and things like that, but we don't always know what's needed, in terms of making a place sustainable. Is there any consulting going on? Is it all on them? How does that work?
Thank you for your question. I really appreciate you asking this because it is a very important point of our project. We obviously want to make sure that the projects that are granted the funding are feasible. So that's the main, or one of the main criteria that will be evaluated in the application. And if I understand your question correctly, we saw this happen in the UEFA Euro 2024 Climate Fund, where small organizations applied for funding, and funding was granted upfront, and they were able to implement the projects thanks to these funds after the board of the framework or the fund that we're proposing had reviewed the project and the feasibility of the project. This is also consistent to local policy and the policies that go into the geographies of where the funds will be. I hope this answers your question.